Akanyeti on behalf, and her colleague Ms. Jamali Akinji, to give a talk on, I think, very much related to circular economy, and that is about the extent of savings that can happen in North Cyprus on recycling, construction, and demolition waste. All yours.
Thank you very much. So myself and Jamali and my colleague that we prepared this research presentation together are environmental engineers, so we are looking a little bit from a different angle to the topic actually. So when we think of construction, for us, or the main question that comes to our mind is, what are the environmental problems related to the construction? What are the pollutions? And one of the main things about the waste generated during and after the construction. So that's why we started on a research project dealing with the construction waste and what are the possible ways to estimate the savings that we can get from recycling or recovering the construction and demolition waste. So, as we know, solid waste problem is a big problem globally overall the world, and since the population is growing, we have more and more solid waste generated, and the environmental impacts related to this is increasing and causing serious impacts on health as well. And especially for small islands, this is even a bigger issue, and we have more challenges in small islands because we are geographically isolated, and many of these islands have tourism-driven economy. And this makes it a little bit more difficult for these islands to manage their waste. And North Cyprus, Cyprus actually is one of those small islands, and when we looked into the literature, actually we couldn't find a lot of information about the construction and demolition waste generation rates, compositions, and how actually these are recovered and the savings that can be obtained specific for small islands. So when we think of the European Union Waste Framework Directive, which was adopted in 2008, we have a waste management hierarchy starting with prevention. So actually the first priority or the most preferred option should be preventing the waste, but obviously we can't prevent all of the waste. Then we should reuse, recycle, and we should try to recover the waste and introduce them into the circular economy. And at the end, if you come to any of these, we should think of landfilling or any other sort of disposal. And the European Union has set a target for 2020 for the European countries to reach at least 70% reuse, recycling, or material recovery of their construction and demolition waste. So if we look at European Union countries, we see that majority of the countries have actually managed to reach this target. If you look at Cyprus, for 2018 reports, they had 64% recovery, so they are increasing their recovery rates, almost there. But if you think of North Cyprus, because our data is not included in these European statistics, we have no information. So what is the situation in North Cyprus in terms of construction and waste management? So we see that we are constructing a lot compared to the fact that we are a small island and we have a small population. And this construction volume has increased, especially after 2014, until then we had relatively stable rates. And actually this value, I should mention, that are the total construction meter square that is permitted to be constructed, not actually constructed. These are the values. And we see after 2014 a sharp increase, and in 2019 we see like almost 4 times more meter squares that have been permitted to be constructed. What does this mean? It means that the waste related to this construction is going to increase significantly because of this sector. What happens to the construction and demolition waste? We have very minimal data from 2015. About 110,000 tons is being generated per year. This is rough estimation by the Contractors Association, and 39,000 tons is going to Güngör, which is a constructed landfill site, and the rest is going to wild dumping. What is wild dumping? Just dumped into nature with all its environmental impacts and health effects. Although there are small numbers, maybe that are some contractors are reusing these materials or recovering these materials as a filling material, but we don't have any reports about this issue. And because of this lack of waste recovery or recycling, we can't reuse and recover, so we are resourcing and exploiting our resources more than we should actually do. And that means we have more quarries because we need materials, we are importing more materials to do the construction. And as I said, we have this limited information, and it is very important that we have reliable data on construction and demolition waste generation rates, especially regional data, and the composition of this waste that can be recovered or reused. And if we have this information, actually, then we can talk about integrated waste management or sustainable waste management systems and how we can do it. That's why we came up with some research objectives, and we started working on them. The first one is to determine the total and regional generation rate of construction and demolition waste in northern part of Cyprus. And if once we manage this, we will determine the quantities of recyclable and recoverable materials in the waste. And finally, we will estimate the potential energy and material savings considering the implementation of an effective recycling system. So to do this, obviously we need data, but we have been really struggling obtaining data because there is none available anywhere collected. Luckily we managed to find the total meter squares of structures that have the permits to be constructed, and Chamber of Civil Engineers were kind enough to share this information with us. But we need the actual data on the actual constructed and demolished meter squares. So we have done our requests. We are waiting the municipalities to provide this information to us. We will also conduct some surveys with the contractors, engineers, and the experts in the field, trying to get at the composition of the construction and demolition waste, because this composition shows variations from region to region. Like the one you have in the United States cannot apply the one that we have here, because we have different construction materials, as you know better than us. And we have some assumption values that we have achieved and used from the literature. So we have some preliminary results based on the data that we could actually access. So again, these are the values based on the permitted constructed meter squares. So we have residential and non-residential structures that got the permission to be constructed for 2009 and 2019. So as you see, there is a huge difference in the quantities. And when you look at 2009, you see relatively similar values for non-residential and residential. But if you look at 2019, you see that the majority of the permits were given to residential structures. And I would like to get your attention to Famagusta, which is the highest quantity, or sorry, meter square in terms of region. And actually, why it is important for us, the residential and non-residential, because we get different amounts of waste generated from residential and non-residential buildings. So when we compare the demolition waste and the construction waste, again regional, we see that, especially again for Famagusta and Iskele, we see that in 2019 we have the high numbers for these in comparison to the demolition. So these are, I guess, relatively the regions that have relatively new regions open to the construction. That's why they don't have that much demolition, but they have construction. And that means these regions will have serious quantities of construction waste that will have to be managed. We also compare the construction waste index, which is the kilogram waste per person per kilogram per person per year. And on the right hand side, we can see the index values for different countries, EU, United States, and regions, etc. So if you look at the values on the left, this is the waste index coming only from the construction waste. The one on the right includes both construction and demolition. So if you look at Iskele, in 2019, the construction waste index was higher than many of the regions and the countries, actually. This indicates that, especially in this region, if all these permits that are taken by the contractors are going to be actually constructed, there will be a huge amount of waste generated in this region that will have to be managed. And then we try to get some estimates on the composition because we still are trying to get the survey results. We use literature data on the composition from different countries. So we see that mostly for the construction waste composition, we have concrete, brick blocks, wood, steel, and gypsum. I would like to draw your attention to the quantities actually here. So if you look at the concrete, so the orange ones are the data obtained from the contractor association, which we assume is the data that is actually constructed in 2015. If you look at the gray one, it's the one that received permission. So probably the actual value is somewhere between gray and the orange value. But that means that if we take concrete into consideration, we have between 20,000 tons and 35,000 tons concrete actually that is being wasted from the construction. And if we consider that this material can actually be reused, recycled, or recovered, we can think how much actually resources we can save and how much energy we can save. So actually, we couldn't finalize this research. We are still in the progress, but our next stage is to get these estimates correctly from the composition and estimate how much resources and energy we can recover if we can actually implement sustainable integrated construction and demolition waste management plan. And lastly, we have the demolition waste composition. So these composition percentages are taken from the data based on the South Cyprus. Again, we don't have any composition values for the North Cyprus. So we see asphalt, dredging soil, and residuals being the three major compositions. Yes, so as I said, we are still in the process of finalizing our research, but we believe that it will be an important research for North Cyprus since we don't have such data and such statistics for the waste management for construction and demolition. In conclusion, so we have 4 times more buildings with construction permits in 2019 compared to 2009. So that means we have a serious problem with the construction waste, and that means since considering that we are actually wildly dumping them, we have serious environmental problems related to construction and demolition waste in North Cyprus. And we realize that the regional waste generation rate should be considered. As you had seen the example of Iskele, it's a special region currently under heavy construction, and that means maybe that needs to be dealt in a different way compared to the rest of the North Cyprus. And we should pay attention to the construction waste index and in relation to the other countries, and take examples how these high index regions should be managed. And we need further studies, further data to be collected from all the stakeholders to have a proper understanding about the construction and demolition waste rates, composition, and how they should be managed. Thank you very much for your time.
Now, yes, Vice, I can see that data is scarce, but seeing this really sharp rise in the number of residential buildings in the space of 10 years, it can kind of tell us that what sorts of main types of construction and demolition waste can be available. Let's not call it waste as potential aggregates or in powder form as potential additives. So what you have done, despite the scarcity of data, is extremely valuable. And I think it should feed in directly into what is being researched in terms of locally, in terms of potential additives and aggregates for next generation of construction and building